जो भैया कह रहे थे ना 150 के, ये इनने बिगाड़ा है मुझे। उनने पूछा कि व्हाट्स योर एक्सपेक्टेड कॉम, मैंने कहा नॉट मच, क्योंकि मैंने और कुछ देखा ही नहीं यार। मैंने इनकी वीडियो देखी, तो कॉलेज से निकला, इनकी वीडियो देखी 400 के, मैंने कहा यार ठीक है, मतलब 150 तो ज़्यादा नहीं होगा। अब मुझे पता चल रहा है कि भाई ये तो मतलब आई वोंट नो किरत भैया is the reason I got this job. If his video wasn't there, then I probably wouldn't have applied. I wouldn't even know that something like this exists. I think one thing that's worked for me is just curating my feed. मतलब only having people in my feed who I find really interesting. You have to decide कि okay, what's that next step that I can use as a foundation to take another step. So that's up to you.
All right, hi everyone. Thank you for coming. Oh, hi Karan. Arey. So, few familiar faces. Thank you all for coming. We're having a very candid chat with Karan. Karan की जर्नी मैं शुरू से थोड़ी ब्रीफ दे देता हूँ. Karan was in cohort 1. He was one of the best students there. If you anyone from cohort 1 here? Oh, a few people. So he took a session on promises, if you remember, in cohort 1, and वहाँ से he started to explore a lot of things. One thing about him I remember is he wanted a starting offer of 150k, which I suggested against. Okay, right out of college this might be a little hard, but he did it. He got into Gumroad, which now has a parent company called Antiwork. Anyone know Gumroad here? Anyone invested in Gumroad? They had a round a few years ago. Okay, so they have a very long story. Like I don't know too much about it, but I know it's a 10-year-old company. It's being run by one founder right now called Sahil. He's not from India. I think he's first generation immigrant. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and they don't hire too much, but Gumroad, you might have seen, it's a SaaS for content creators, marketers, people sell stuff there. They're doing really well. Their numbers are public, you can check. And he got hired around 6 months ago. As I said, they don't hire much, but they have the base comp everywhere of around 200k. His offer right now is 230k. He, I would say, dropped out of college right after. He went to Ashoka University in Delhi.
Sonipat.
Yeah. Ashoka University in Sonipat. He completed his BSc, got the offer, and then eventually dropped out. Right now, he's most probably going to move to the US if the visa complies, because Antiwork is moving on site. So that's a brief about his journey abhi tak. I think he's 21 right now. We'll keep it very actionable, and whatever questions you have, जो पूछना है पूछ लो, एकदम शर्म करे बिना, मतलब don't get warmed up धीरे-धीरे. We don't have a session. We only have a very strong, heavy Q&A. आप नहीं पूछोगे तो मैं पूछ लूँगा. But it would be nice if you guys only ask. These offers come not very often, and when they come, people don't put them out. So if he's here and putting out his offers and numbers for everyone, it's for us to learn from it. So whatever questions you might have, would love to have, and नहीं तो फिर I'll ask questions.
Sorry? Oh, यार मुझे ज़्यादा कुछ तो नहीं आता. गमरोड का जो प्राइमरी स्टैक था 2024 में, वो था रूबी ऑन रेल्स प्लस रिएक्ट, एंड लेकिन अब हम स्विच करें Next.js पे. So we're migrating from Ruby on Rails to Next.js. Before that, I was primarily playing around with Next.js, React. लेकिन ऐसे मतलब I'm not sort of fixated on any single stack. जो भी problem आती है उसके लिए मतलब सीख लेता हूँ या सीखना पड़ता है.
One thing about him is he's very generalist. A few years ago, like right after cohort 1, I was referring him at Backpack, and he made the Binance UI end to end, और उसको आता भी नहीं था मतलब, and you know, pretty finessed. तो उसको जो काम दे दोगे वो सीख लेता है. This is called being high agency. So that's one good thing about him. I don't think he knows something very well, but इसको जो काम दे दिया जाता है वो आ जाता है. Did you know Ruby on Rails before you joined?
No.
So he didn't know Ruby on Rails. This was the primary stack at Gumroad. So it's not necessarily about what you know, it's more about being high agency. But I think before that, I would love to know, how did you get in, like interview process, how did you approach?
I reached out to Sahil in November 2023. At that point, I had like a few open source contributions. There's this 𝗖cie company called Lightdash. I think the 𝗖cie 2022, I think something like that. So I contributed there. I think I got some 8 PRs merged in and like 15 open PRs. But then they sort of closed all my PRs and they said ki, we can't focus on outside contributions. We have to focus on our own internal team. So then I tried to use that to apply for jobs. So I reached out to Sahil. I told him ki, hey, I've contributed to this 𝗖cie company, and I also sent him the Binance project that I built. So uska no aa gaya. वो कहता कि not a good fit. So then I started applying to other companies. फिर in that applying to other companies, in January 2024, Sahil tweeted कि he's coming to India. तो I thought यार मिलते हैं, साहिल आ रहा है तो we should definitely meet. So he came to India and he posted a Telegram chat. So in that Telegram chat, I was very active. And at that point, there was this open source repository which was going matlab, very, very popular. It was called 𝗵𝗿𝗿𝗲. So January 2024 में, I think like it had 0 stars in it wasn't even public, it was a private repo. Then like a few weeks later, Spickford, he was the sort of he created that, so he tweeted out and then it's all of a sudden gained 10K stars. तो मैंने देखा कि okay, this is a good opportunity. This doesn't have a lot of contributors who matlab are stable contributors. So then I started contributing to that, and I became the number 2 contributor on that in about like 2 or 3 weeks. And at that point, the repo reached like 20,000 stars. So then I used that as leverage. I reached out to Sahil ki, hey Sahil, I met you. I clicked a picture with him. I sent him that picture. I met you in Delhi. And I've been building this. I'm immediately productive in any code base that you drop me in. So are you hiring right now? So then he said ki, let me take a look. फिर he didn't respond. So then I thought कि यार अब क्या करें. Then he replied कि we'll start hiring after the board meeting. So Gumroad has 4 public board meetings every single year. So the next one was on 15th Feb. तो उस board meeting में he dropped a few challenges. उसने कहा कि so Zoom meeting थी, उसमें like the people who were presenting उनके cameras on थे, और साहिल ने problem statement दी, if you're applying to Gumroad, include in your application the layout of the room we're in and the positions of everybody. तो फिर मतलब somehow I figured that out and I sent it to him. I sent him मतलब an entire 3D sort of drawing of the room, a floor map, and I actually found the exact location he was in, and along with all the positions of all the people. So I sent it to him. फिर उसने भी वो भी थोड़ा बुखला गया कि मतलब हाउ डिड यू डू इट. तो मैंने फिर पूरी अपनी स्टोरी बताई कि मतलब आई यूज सम जियो ट्रैकिंग स्टफ एंड सम बेसिक गूगलिंग. तो उससे मतलब आई वाज आल्सो वेरी लकी. अगर कोई और लोकेशन होती आई प्रॉब्ली वुडंट हैव बीन एबल टू फिगर दैट आउट. सो देन आई सेंट इट टू हिम एंड देन ही सेड कि मतलब साउंड्स गुड, लेट्स हैव अ कॉल. So the interview process at Gumroad is, first you reach out to Sahil, then there's a like phone call to judge fit. Uske baad there's a trial, paid trial, and then if you pass the trial, you're in. So in that phone call, matlab he asked me how do you pay your bills. So at that point of time, generally I was contributing to open source, and there was this one Web3 company which was trying to do something in decentralized AI. तो उसमें मतलब I was also doing a work trial there. No, sorry, I was freelancing there. तो वहाँ पे मैंने कहा कि मतलब I work in this, और मेरे GitHub पे थोड़े projects थे, वो मैंने बता दिया कि ये सब मैं करता हूँ. Then we had the call. He said कि it makes sense to have a trial. Submit like just write a basic project. मतलब write something in Ruby on Rails because that's our main stack. And मतलब once you send me that project, then we can start the trial. तो आई थॉट कि ही मेंट दैट एज लाइक अ रिकमेंडेशन कि कर लो अगर करना है, वैसे ज़रूरत है नहीं. तो मैंने फिर बोला कि चलो बॉस ट्रायल कब स्टार्ट हो रहा है. तो फिर ही सेज कि बॉस प्रोजेक्ट कहाँ पे है. तो मैंने फिर मेरी लग गई कि यार प्रोजेक्ट देना है. मुझे लगा कि दैट वाज अ रिकमेंडेशन. सो देन आई डिडंट रिप्लाई टू हिम. आई स्पेंड द नेक्स्ट 2 weeks crazy, yeah, worst 2 weeks of my life, just like learning Ruby on Rails. I built this thing called NEAT Royale. So basically like a battle royale for NEAT JEE questions. तो वो मैंने Ruby on Rails में बनाया. उसमें I use some WebSockets. So WebSockets का equivalent in Ruby on Rails is actionable. मतलब I use some non-mainstream stuff. And मैंने साहिल को भेजा. He said looks good. We can start next Monday. So then my trial started, and usually trials at Gumroad last for about 4 to 6 weeks. मेरा ट्रायल चला 8 हफ्तों के लिए. So 8 weeks, but it was a paid trial. So that was nice. And on June 17th, I got to know that I've passed my trial. उसके बाद happily ever after. Yeah.
this suddenly reminded me of one thing. So, have you guys wondered how did he find this company? Sahil kaun hai? How do I know Sahil? How does he know Sahil? You know, like how can you find these people? This is a very funny story. मैंने अभी मेरे सामने mail thread खोला है. I had emailed Sahil back in 2020 because he had posted a similar tweet that we are hiring, and I have an email thread right in front of me where I said, hey, these are the products I've built. He said, these are the instructions, please build this. I built it and deployed it. I said, hey Sahil, I've built a basic version. You can test it out over here. And then I got rejected. He said, thanks, but unfortunately I don't think there's a fit. Just got hammered with inbound and I can only pick one. So a few years ago, I was also applying to the same company. So these are like it's not too hard to find these companies. High agency people are already on the lookout. Just say maybe.finance, he said, or another open source contribution. I think he was contributing to TinyGrad as well. These are just people that you know of if you're active on Twitter or you're in the right communities. And then one of these times you might get lucky and get into them. But if not, you at least have a good fallback of a different company, open source or otherwise. His worst case also, if Gumroad wouldn't have happened, something else would have worked out. So try to keep an eye out and be active on Twitter is what I wanted to stress on through this one.
You learn, मतलब आपको कुछ भी सीखना होता था आप जल्दी से सीख लेते थे. Like जैसे आपने बोला Ruby and Rails मैंने 2 weeks में सीख ली और मतलब ये सब था. तो मतलब ये सीखना कैसे है? Like टॉपिक.
मैंने रूबी ऑन रेल सीखा ही नहीं. मैंने मतलब आई जस्ट फिगर्ड आउट कि मैंने बनाना क्या है. फिर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन तब तक कर्सर वाज आउट बाय दैम. सो कर्सर को एआई को यूज़ करके आई ट्राई टू फिगर आउट कि मतलब व्हाट्स द राइट वे टू डू दिस और व्हाट्स अ मतलब वे दैट आई कैन लर्न how to do this. So then it sort of guided me through it. It was matlab theek hai, I had to read a lot of documentation. There were lots of roadblocks. You guys all know ki like if you don't know something, it's hard to figure out where the problems are. But अपना माथा फोड़ते हो उस पे तो आ जाता है eventually. So yeah, so I wouldn't say कि I know Ruby on Rails. matlab I wouldn't say कि I know anything because you can't know everything, right? Ruby on Rails mein there'll be like even if somebody says that they know Ruby on Rails, there'll be some one thing which they'll be missing, right? So it's like how do you want to learn Ruby on Rails or do you want to solve a problem? So if matlab I personally try to approach everything from a problem solving perspective और वहाँ से फिर whatever specific information I need. तो जैसे I didn't read the entire documentation. I just figured out कि okay मतलब I had the idea कि मुझे I want to make a battle royale system for NEET aspirants, right? So basically MCQ questions, 100 people. If you're the last one to answer, you're out. And मतलब 100 rounds or like 50 rounds, whatever. So I had that idea. फिर मतलब I just tried to build something, हुआ नहीं. Then I thought कि okay, what can I do differently? And this was like doing these cycles hundreds of times. So that worked out, and also being lucky because lots of times I've started things and thought ki okay matlab I'll need to spend at least a few months to understand this entire thing. So I've abandoned those things because it wasn't worth the effort. So in this particular case I was lucky enough that the specific project I wanted to build was within my capability at the time. If it wasn't, then I probably couldn't have done it. So it's lots of luck and also just having a problem first perspective.
So it's like we can say that आप एक प्रोजेक्ट उठाओ या एक प्रॉब्लम उठाओ और उसके अराउंड जो भी टेक्नोलॉजी है उसमें जिसमें भी आपको वर्क करना है उसके अराउंड प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने की ट्राई करो लाइक डिलीवर कर दो.
हाँ इसमें मतलब आसान था क्योंकि स्टैक तो मेरे लिए it was chosen for me. Ruby on Rails में करना था and एक मतलब ये आइडिया मेरे पास पहले से ही था. इनफैक्ट ये किसी और का आइडिया था, उनने जेई के लिए किया था, मैंने नीट के लिए कर दिया. तो but yeah matlab I deployed it and I think one thing that I was very careful of was when I sent Sahil this link, matlab I just sent him like a working link. It worked. Usme you could log in, you could play a game, and matlab there were bots who were playing with you, so it was a one link sort of experience for him. I tried to make sure कि he doesn't have to wade through any code or anything. He didn't even look at the code. I sent him the GitHub repo and I sent him that one neatroyale.com link. That's it. So then he liked that, and luckily he liked that, and it worked out.
और जैसे लाइक हम कुछ भी नया सीखते हैं और न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी स्टैक तो इवन इफ यू बिल्ड समथिंग लाइक फॉर माय पर्टिकुलर से वो गट फीलिंग नहीं आती कि आई कैन से टू समवन कि हाँ मुझे आता है. आई एम ऑलवेज लाइक नेकिंग कॉन्फिडेंस कि हाँ मुझे नहीं आता. because like everybody keeps saying आता है, but I don't know.
मैंने भी नहीं कहा कि मुझे आता है मैंने बस जो मेरे
How
से
do you get the confidence to apply then or reach out?
नहीं अप्लाई पे तो nobody is judging you, no. अप्लाई पे मतलब what's the worst, you're at the same point you started at. जॉब नहीं था, अप्लाई करने के बाद भी नहीं है, उसमें कोई रेपुटेशन तो जा नहीं रही है, मतलब पूरी दुनिया को तो बोल नहीं रहे हो, तो उसमें आई थिंक लाइक अप्लाइंग टू लॉट्स ऑफ कंपनीज एंड जस्ट बिल्डिंग लॉट्स ऑफ थिंग्स एंड फेलिंग अलॉट, that's probably that's probably like what worked for me. So you start with the final product, the final thing that you want to achieve, then you break that down into a slightly smaller version of it, right? And then you keep doing that until it transforms to code. And like somewhere you won't be able to do it, so uske liye you need to research, you'll have to read documentation, you'll have to ask AI. But generally, like being completely fixated on this exact problem ki mujhe I have to solve exactly this problem, and not being distracted by, oh maybe I need to learn this other thing to solve this problem, because that is something that I've struggled with a lot, where I start with a problem and I think ki this is way too difficult, and I'll probably have to gain some prior knowledge before it. So but you have to actively push that thought away, and you have to matlab completely commit yourself to something, right? Yeah.
Can we say that you have to be a very good engineer first, and then you can translate your skills into whatever you want to do? You master, not even master, like comfortable with building, I think you can say these four things, and you get the general idea like how applications work in general, and then you translate your knowledge by reading through drops. Okay, so this thing happens like this and this. So maybe you read this and just implement the same thing, like translate it.
I think, yeah, you're probably right. Matlab, there's some sort of base knowledge that needs to be there, right? So I'm assuming that everybody here matlab, knows basic stuff, right? Those basic, like once you know how to build the most basic stuff, and you have a decent idea ki, matlab, what needs to be done, or you know ki you can find that idea somewhere on the internet or with AI, then you can probably start building stuff. And you'll very quickly, I think, understand what you can do and what you can't do. And what you can't do will be stuff which will like take way too much time. So it depends on your priorities, because for Gumroad, this entire process lasted, like the application process lasted about I think 4 or 5 months of just constant back and forth. Even when I met him in Delhi, so matlab, I didn't talk about getting a job. I just wanted to understand ki what he's like, startups, etc. फिर when he was leaving, matlab I wanted to ask more, but he was leaving, so I followed him down and मैंने उसे कहा कि matlab where are you headed after this? तो वो क्या था कि I'm headed to Bangalore. तो मैंने कहा can I meet you at the airport? So and then matlab that probably stuck in his mind कि this guy is persistent. उसने कहा कि नहीं यार वो I'm with my wife and my mother, don't do it. So I didn't meet him at the airport, but at least I think that might have helped. And then when I had the like call with him, I prepared like an entire sort of slide. मतलब Canva में मैंने पूरा बनाया कि how I figured this out. That took a couple of hours. उसने देखा भी नहीं. So lots of things like fail. Lots of hundreds of hours will fail. But then those hundreds of hours will help you find. They helped me find that one thing which didn't fail, right? And I would say that I am in no position to give advice because I've only done it once, and it's only been 6 months, right? So I'm just sharing what worked for me and what I will continue to do, right? So yeah.
Building process with the use of AI. Like you use AI to research. Like is that limited to research only, or by building the product also? Did you
Yeah.
leverage AI?
Yeah, building also. So मतलब I was also pretty lucky कि तब तक cursor आ गया था. Do you all know what cursor is? Yeah, so cursor was out by then, and तब GPT 4 या 4.0 था. So it was still pretty good. मतलब it couldn't solve everything, but there were some things it could solve, and it could मतलब nudge you in the right direction. Also मतलब I used AI for I tried to get AI to teach me as opposed to build things with AI. I obviously try to one shot with AI कि यार ये solve कर दे. अब नहीं करेगा तो I'll have to ask it कि okay fine, how do I solve it? So and sometimes it doesn't even have good answers for that. So then you have to do some manual digging. So it all depends on priorities. My priority was कि this is something I should do. And since I've already put in so much effort, थोड़ा सा और कर देते हैं. So one more thing. So maybe it's a sunk cost fallacy. जो भैया कह रहे थे ना 150 के, ये इनने बिगाड़ा है मुझे. इनने लिखा 400 के, मैंने स्पेसिफिकली मैसेज में लिखा था कि मतलब उनने पूछा कि व्हाट्स योर एक्सपेक्टेड कॉम. मैंने कहा नॉट मच, क्योंकि मैंने और कुछ देखा ही नहीं यार. मैंने इनकी वीडियो देखी, तो कॉलेज से निकला, इनकी वीडियो देखी 400 के. मैंने कहा यार ठीक है, मतलब 150 तो ज़्यादा नहीं होगा. अब मुझे पता चल रहा है कि भाई ये तो मतलब दिस इज़ कम्प्लीटली क्रेजी. दिस इज या तो तब नहीं पता था. तो लेकिन बट भैया सही कह रहे हैं कि एट दैट पॉइंट I that probably wasn't the right decision because I didn't have any proof of work when I asked for that. So but then I luckily built some proof of work. Thoda I messed around and luckily things worked out. Yeah.
So what if say I'm working on a problem in a certain framework, and midway through it I realize after putting all that hours that this might not be the best solution, but I'm not sure. और दूसरा framework भी है. So should I jump ship or like what depends?
Depends on like nobody has answers to these except yourself. You will know the specifics of that problem and you will know exactly ki okay, like you won't know unless you do it, right? Like I was watching and this one interview that Bhaiya had with somebody who was trying very hard for 2 years to get a job, but he couldn't. So like when you start losing motivation कि अब ये हो ही नहीं सकता, and you stuck on the same thing, you're not making any progress, then it's probably a good idea to reach out to somebody who's a few steps ahead of you in what you're trying to do. And most of the problems that we're working on, right, they've already been solved by people in different companies, in different places, in open source repositories. So if you're stuck on something, you should definitely reach out. And the best place to reach out nowadays is AI. So
Yeah, now I'm trying Twitter, reaching out to people
like
certain framework.
yeah, but with regards to your specific problem, you can't know without trying it out. साहिल को मैंने पहले ईमेल किया, उसने अपने ट्वीट पे लिखा था कि वो ट्वीट पे उसने लिखा था कि we're hiring. तो नवंबर 2023 में आई ईमेल्ड हिम, उसका ही पोस्ट आया था कि we're hiring, email me और DM me. तो DM तो मतलब मैं नहीं कर पाया because I wasn't verified. तो फिर I emailed him, and one surprising thing about a lot of these CEOs in the US or maybe even in India, I haven't reached out to many people, but they reply. They do, मतलब short होगा reply, but they reply. If you've put in even a little bit of effort and you try to understand what they want from you, they will reply. So Sahil replied, a couple of other people replied. I mean, they rejected, but they replied. So yeah, but sometimes people also don't reply. So you have to be careful.
जब आप कंट्रीब्यूट करना चाहते हो तो आप कहाँ ढूंढे कि कहाँ पे आपको ऐड करना चाहिए. जैसे आपने आपके वीडियो को एक कोर्स में तो आपने समझाते हुए आपको लगा कि यहाँ पे एरर है, तो वो कैसे?
आपको ये समझना पड़ेगा कि कंपनी को प्रॉब्लम क्या आ रही है. समटाइम्स मतलब पीपल ओपन सोर्स देयर प्रोजेक्ट्स टू मतलब ऑफलोड सम मीनियल वर्क. जैसे कोई मतलब माइग्रेशन करनी है और सम स्मॉल फीचर दैट मतलब इट्स नॉट वर्थ पेइंग डेव्स फॉर. सो दैट्स अ पेन पॉइंट दैट दे हैव दैट दे आर नॉट विलिंग टू सॉल्व. और वो इश्यूज में आ जाता है. Either people have already created PR pull requests for it, or there are issues for it. Sometimes there are even bounties. So maybe there were lots of bounties. I managed to get a bounty on that. तो मतलब issue से पता चल जाता है. Mainly yeah, from GitHub you can tell. People have problems listed out. Twitter से पता चल जाता है कि कौन सी चीज़ बढ़ रही है, कौन सी चीज़ is a good thing to spend your time in. जैसे something like the Linux kernel, right? That's open source. But उसमें अगर आप contribute करने की कोशिश करोगे, मैंने अभी नहीं किया, but if you try to contribute to that, that'll take a big amount of your time. And it's already a saturated place, like thousands, I don't know, 10,000, tens of thousands of people have already contributed there. So you won't be able to make a mark. And sometimes opportunities arise where you see कि okay, with my particular skill set, right? Which I can मतलब fill in for a couple of weeks. जैसे if I'm good at something, but this problem requires me to work on something that requires me 2 weeks of work to learn something, then you can see, okay, maybe if I put in 2 weeks, I have a probable shot at this. So yeah, it's matlab, just take a look at interesting things that other people do. Matlab, there are lots of people on Twitter. Will Depew is an engineer at OpenAI. I think he's younger than me. He's 21, and he's making like $800,000. And he dropped out of college, right? Dravya Shah is also a great person. So, matlab, try to just surround yourself with really cool people who get in. Matlab, when I look at these people, I get a sense of awe. मतलब मुझे लगता है भाई ये कैसे कर दिया यार इसने. तो then I try to see कि what can I do so that the thing I do makes मतलब produces that feeling within me. So नहीं yeah. So
And all these open source contributions, were it like mainly working on Next.js or anything that the repository demanded?
तो Light Dash, which I try to contribute in what was it? This October, September, October में. That was Next.js and some other stuff. Mainly मतलब Next.js, Postgres, etc. तो and luckily maybe was also in that. तो मेरा थोड़ा उसमें experience था. मतलब Prisma, Postgres, Next.js. So उसमें मेरा Light Dash से थोड़ा experience था. तो वहाँ पे मैं lucky हो गया. So I didn't have to put in that much effort. Otherwise, it probably would have taken me a month to effectively contribute. But there are some, matlab, if you look at open source repositories, there are some issues that you can solve with no knowledge at all. There are some simple bugs which you just need to do some detective work for. If you know how to operate an IDE, if you know how to matlab, hunt around in code, if you know how to run the app, वो readme में होता है, then you can try to fix some small bugs, and फिर उससे then you can try to snowball that into something bigger, because by solving that small bug you get a little bit of experience which you can use.
तो आपने बोला था कि लाइक वो जो 2 वीक्स थे जिसमें आपको रूबी एंड रेल्स को प्रोजेक्ट करना था, आपने ऐसे बोलते हो लाइक वर्स्ट 2 वीक्स थे. तो अगर आप चाहो तो आप गो थ्रू करवा सकते हो 2 वीक्स में, मतलब आपने कैसे, मतलब पहले दिन से लास्ट दिन तक कैसे मेहनत किया और क्या क्या हुआ उसमें?
यार पहले दिन तो दुख लगा क्योंकि उसने कह दिया कि आई एम सॉरी वेयर इज द प्रोग्रामिंग चैलेंज. तो मुझे लगा यार अब दिखाना पड़ेगा. एंड आई कांट मतलब बिकॉज आई नो कि ही इज़ अ पर्सन विद वेरी लिटिल टाइम. इफ़ आई से ओके दैट्स मतलब दैट्स एन इम्प्रेशन आई दैट्स me in his mind not delivering something. So I have to matlab the next message I send to him, I have to try to impress him with that. And ye impress matlab you only have to impress until you get the job. Then it's फिर थोड़ा कम तब भी करना पड़ता है but कम करना पड़ता है. मतलब then they're paying you, you're their headache now. So and before that they're your headache. So yeah.
Cool. Any more questions?
Oh wait, I didn't finish your question, no? हाँ, sorry. तो पहले दिन तो दुख हुआ. फिर second day मतलब I came up with the idea. उससे पहले नहीं, I had the idea prepared before that कि अगर मैं project बनाऊंगा इसमें बनाऊंगा. And I try to build थोड़ा पहले, लेकिन फिर नहीं हुआ. फिर मैंने कहा कि यार ट्रायल शुरू करें. मैंने सोचा ठीक है ऑन द जॉब सीख लूँगा. लेकिन फिर उसने कहा कि आई नीड टू सी अ प्रोजेक्ट. देन सो आई मेस्ड अराउंड एंड सेकेंड डे just matlab trying to get the login thing working, and then trying to get action cable working. Uske baad trying to see how WebSockets work in Ruby on Rails, trying to figure out how real-time communication works, because I was building a game essentially, a multiplayer game. So wahan pe I had to figure out a lot of these intricacies. So it was just like debugging and matlab sitting for 50 minutes, head hurting, walking around, throwing a ball, thinking again, coming back to the seat, thinking through the problem, asking AI not helping, crying, and then trying again, essentially. But matlab at times, there are times when for 2, 3, 4 days, you make no progress at all. but you have to push through that. And like pushing through that is essentially what differentiates you, right? So if you can tolerate pain, if you're good at tolerating pain, or if you think you can become good at tolerating pain, then you can push yourself and try to sort of keep your imposter syndrome away. Yeah, so it was essentially that for the entire thing, just debugging, building, not knowing how stuff works. And yeah, mainly it was just that.
And if you have to do it all over again, what would you do and what would you not?
I don't know, man. I don't know, because like every time period is different, right? Tab there was that specific opportunity. But yeah, I'd stalk Twitter for opportunities. I try to make friends who I find interesting. So I don't know how many. So do you know Dravya Shah? You guys? I joined his Discord channel. Then I became friends with him. We tried to build something together, but फिर उसमें हमें time नहीं मिला. He had a job. मेरा भी कुछ था. Then so I became friends with him. So उसने एक tweet भी किया था, पता नहीं बहुत time पहले, कि मतलब Karan is one of the best programmers I know. So that's मतलब another reference essentially. But I'm just having fun, right? I want to figure out कि how does this guy do things that makes me feel like shit, bhai. Like everything that he does, right? It brings a sense of awe in me, like a wonder कि भाई ये कैसे कर दिया? ये तो मतलब कितना 19 साल का है. So then मतलब just try to be around people who make you feel that, who make you feel कि I haven't done anything. Yeah.
जैसे आपका कंटेंट की ऑफर जॉब लगती है तो आपको ऐसा लगता होगा कि हार्ड वर्क कभी भी बेकार नहीं होता है, लेकिन जब आपके पास काफ़ी रिजेक्शन आते होंगे जब जॉब नहीं थी आपके पास, तो कभी ऐसा सेल्फ डाउट आता था?
अरे बहुत, अरे हर रोज़ यार. यार मम्मी पापा का प्रेशर, और सही प्रेशर, they're right in what they're doing, because like I dropped out of college, and I do not recommend this. Do not do this. It was a bad decision.
Join a college.
Stay in college and join a college. So yeah, matlab, so lots of self-doubt, lots of times when I thought कि अब हो गया यार, मतलब I thought कि I was really close to getting it, then it didn't happen, and it feels like a drag. It really does. But then, like that's all of life, right? Even at this point, I still have to work. I can't stop working. तो Sage Math में I tried to contribute and नहीं हुआ मेरा. तो then I realized कि ठीक है, I can probably work for one day at a stretch, but I'm not consistent. And that's what sort of didn't let me get this. So then it's like, okay, fine, I have to work really hard at disciplining myself and just being more consistent. And so like I figured out that that's my starting point. Not instead of comparing myself to somebody who'd already gotten or cracked GSOC, right? Because they're probably good at things that I'm not good at that moment. And it doesn't help. At least it didn't help me. It does help to be inspired by what other people do, but it doesn't help to sort of try to put yourself in their place and try to start the race from where they're starting. Yeah.
What was your better learner first or you builders first? Like it's a personal choice, as you say.
Depends on what you want to do. It's different for everybody. Yeah.
What about your daily routine? Like how much hours of networking and coding?
I don't remember. Yeah, probably matlab, जैसे if I'm building something, then I'm fully focused on that. Like multiple days goes, no tweet. And once I've done that, then it's a lot of hey, look at this, hey, matlab, then I try to push it out. Once I got the number 2 contributor on maybe, then I started pushing really hard, like applied to, cold emailed hundreds of people, matlab, I'm doing this. And that was probably, and I didn't build for quite a lot of time when I was doing that pushing. So matlab, it depends on what point you're at. There's no certain schedule. It's just what problem you want to solve, what problem you're facing at a particular moment. यार पता नहीं, एग्ज़ाम से पहले तो सभी 20 घंटे करते हैं, तो 20 तो किया ही होगा। और देयर आर डेज where I haven't worked at all. But I will be honest, I struggle with working, or at least I used to struggle with working. And consistency was hard, and there's so many distractions. It's very easy to get. So, yeah, this is something I'd attribute to. A big role in my focus was actually Swamiji. So, my Nanu knew Swamiji, and I didn't know them back then. But I think in 2020, I was planning to drop out of college. My first year was very, very bad, like two point something GPA, and मैंने सोचा यार ये कॉलेज ही ख़राब है, मैं ड्रॉप आउट कर रहा हूँ। तो देन स्वामी जी टोल्ड मी कि भाई भागते नहीं हैं, and you have to sort of put your head down, and next semester you have to like top all the courses. You have to get like top grade in all the courses, and you have to come first in all the courses. Otherwise though, like, and the reason why he said this was because I was interested in spirituality. I was very interested, and he was the only person who I felt was worthy of guiding me. So he said कि भाई तुझे spirituality में आना है तो college नहीं कर पा रहा है, क्या औकात है तेरी? तो spirituality is not for losers. First you उन्होंने मुझे कहा पहले first you do something in life, then you come here. Otherwise you're not capable of doing that. You have to prove your capability. So Swamiji has been a big, I probably attribute most of my success to him. He's a big, I won't know. 𝗖ecie is the reason I got this job. If his video wasn't there, then I probably wouldn't have applied. I wouldn't even know that something like this exists. But the reason I know 𝗖cie is because of Swamiji. So he was the one who pushed me to not become a complete degenerate and waste all my time. So yeah. तो नाम तो बोलते नहीं है, लेकिन अब बोल देता हूँ। उनका नाम है स्वामी असीम बोधानंद, एंड बट लोग उन्हें स्वामी असीमानंद के नाम से जानते हैं। सो वो अल्मोड़ा में रहते हैं। ही लिव्स इन अ वेरी सेक्लूडेड प्लेस। जब भी मैं नानी के घर आता हूँ इन चंडीगढ़, आई गेट टू मीट हिम समटाइम्स, तो उनका आना जाना रहता है। सो दैट्स प्रॉबली something I'm very, very grateful for and very, very lucky to have. Yeah.
Super 30 offset करते हैं अल्मोड़ा।
But how can I effectively utilize that Twitter? Like, कैसे हम उसको use कर सकते हैं कि हम better opportunities से grab कर पाएं, या फिर right लोगों को हम approach कर पाएं, और एक अच्छी अपनी personality वहाँ पे build कर पाएं, ताकि हमें लोग reach out करेंगे, you can do this stuff.
I think one thing that's worked for me is just curating my feed. Only having people in my feed who I find really interesting. So this is somebody who I aspire to be like, or this is somebody whose work I find really, really exciting. So then I try to get more and more of that. And as you curate, right, then you'll get into the minds of these people, what they want, what they're interested in. And then you can build something which solves a small problem that somebody is facing, or you can reach out to somebody if you think you're in a place where they'll actually want to do something with you. So it's like very, very slowly taking one step after the other, and like all of this is unique to your journey. All of this is unique to the position where you're at. You have to decide, okay, what's that next step that I can use as a foundation to take another step. So that's up to you. Yeah, that's a great question. You should always try to find references for what you're building, so that you save time and you understand things quicker. Because you can save a lot of effort if you just look at somebody else's implementation after trying for a little bit. If you spend, let's say, 30 minutes on a specific problem and you don't figure it out, and you know there's a solution. For me, what works is working for 30 minutes on that, so that I can understand the solution, and then looking at the solution, and then just using that. But you don't always have references, as you said, right? When you don't have that, one tendency I had when there was no reference was to matlab, always try to think about ki what's the right way to do this. That was the question I had in mind. Ki, okay, what's the right way to do this? Because there's a lot of tension because the decisions I make right now will affect how much trouble I'll be in later. Right? If I do something wrong right now, then that will affect me later, and I won't even know why I'm facing that problem. So that sort of puts you in a mind frame where you're just doubting yourself, where you don't know whether this is the right thing to do. But for me, what's worked is just trying something. If there's a clear decision, take that. If there's no clear decision, pick one on random and go with it. And also try to have, like, this is something that I find helpful. Also try to have like checkpoints. Like GitHub allows you to do this, right? If something breaks, then you can just go back to your original thing and try another approach. I find that a lot of times I don't want to do this because it's a lot of effort to go from like one approach which you spend like 2 days on, and then you find that that's a dead end. Then you have to, and you don't even know why it's not working. So then you have to go back to a point where you knew how things were working. Then you have to try another approach. So that's how I solve this problem. And that's what helps me.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Huge round of applause for Karan.